Welcome in the latest episode of the 5 Reasons Podcast. I'm Ethan Skolnick. I'm here from what we call now the Seltzer-Mayberg Studios in North Miami, which is kind of our extended office, and taping the podcast from there. Check out the other podcasts from this week. Did one with Chris Perkins from Dolphins Camp at OTAs. Had a good conversation there. And also with Nekias Duncan, 1 month out from the NBA draft, we talked about the Heat's options at number 13, where they'll trade the pick or what they will do with it. Also, check out the other 14 podcasts in our network, including Miami Heat Beat, 3 Yards Per Carry, Swings and Mishes with Craig Mish. New episode from Steve Goldstein, sat down with Scotty Bowman, and Josh Darrow will be back with 5 Rings Canes next week, and our website, 5reasonssports.com. We've got the NBA Finals coming up, Toronto, Golden State, and I'm bringing on an old friend and someone that is well known to the South Florida media market. First appearance on our podcast. He's been on Miami Heat Beat over the years, so I apologize to him for that. But going to spend some time with me today, Izzy Gutierrez. You can follow him at Izzy Gutierrez on Twitter. Thank you for doing this, sir.
No problem. Since it's my first appearance, I got to mention a couple of things. North Miami, that is where I grew up, and so you're in the middle of my hometown. Where are you specifically?
We are, we try not to give out our location too often for reasons that Chris and I are joking about. But we're in Miami Shores, specifically. We are right off of I-95. There is a Subway near us. That's all I'm going to say. I can't give away any other details. I don't have my location on my phone. But
it's a good thing it's a podcast and you can't bleep things out, but okay.
But that's right. But we are right there. And actually, the one of the perks to this particular place is, because you're very familiar with South Florida traffic, is that we're negotiating to try to get a billboard, which is right above the building. And the billboard would face the cars that are driving north, and it's right before Golden Glades, right? So you get stuck there for 45 minutes.
A lot of angry people looking at your billboard.
That's right. And Craig Mish will be looking angrily right back at them. And that's kind of what
that was going to be the second thing that I mentioned, by the way.
What is that?
What was it? Swings and Mishes? Is that Craig's?
That is Craig's podcast. That is Swings.
That's fantastic.
Swings and Mishes. We came up with that. Breaking bread at a Marlins game, where Craig is the one person who goes every single day. Actually, you know everybody in our network, basically, right? I mean, Darrow, and I mean you go back with him and Goldie. You're familiar with Seth Levitt and OJ McDuffie hosting Fish Tank. Obviously, you're very familiar with Mr. Levitt. So whenever that ESPN thing ends, we'll have one ready for you. And Jax too, obviously. It's like our whole. It's like our poker games come to life, basically. It's everybody in our poker game except a couple.
It's like I've drifted away from the rest of the group.
Well, we're bringing you back. One podcast at a time.
Okay.
All right, so let's do some NBA with you here. And since you are Mr. Sidelines in addition to being Mr. Around the Horn, what I want to do before the NBA Finals, we'll do a little analysis because you and I used to do that just for the hell of it anyway, and on a radio show for a few months where we got an excellent offer to stay. But basically, I want to get into personalities with you. Because I know that you get to know these guys a little bit. It's part of what the job is. You work the locker room beforehand and all that, and they get comfortable with you, and then you have information that you can share during games. So I want to start with Golden State first. Tell me something about Steph Curry that we don't know.
This isn't any. I don't think it's anything that you don't know. I think he's just really good at being this measured guy. He really loves golf. Like, really, it's all he ever talks about. I just don't think there's anything like hidden to him. I think he's very, very genuine and very, for the most part, forthcoming. I don't love the fact that he's never really, this is a total personal thing here, but he's never really addressed his connections with his church and the head of his church being very much anti-LGBT, like very much so. And but so I think he's guarded in a way. But I mean, he's the child of a star. Del Curry, grew up in this, in this world, if you will. It wasn't, now it wasn't the current time, but it was. He was enough of a star that he could sort of prepare Steph for this. And so he is just exactly this. He's kind of like a child star all grown up, but one that has been raised almost perfectly.
And so your sense of this, I know it's hard to really know, except for me as an observer now, kind of watching him on the court, and it looks like he's having the time of his life the past couple weeks. Do you think he's happy that Kevin Durant has not been playing?
I think he's happy to get back to doing this, yes. And I think the timing of it is more beneficial to him, yes. Because I think if he was doing this in the regular season, I feel like it's already a been there, done that situation. And there's always the fear with him of getting hurt. And so if he's doing it with literally only having to do it rather with 9 wins left in front of him, that's almost perfect timing. And so he can get what he needs. But in terms of, the finals MVP, if it comes, and the accolades and the moments that he's been waiting for in the playoffs, or other people have been really waiting for in the playoffs. But I think he's also, if you were to just have him weigh what's more important to him, having KD back for the long run after this, knowing how difficult it's going to be without him, or him having this moment, I think he'd clearly take KD back. And so it's one of those difficult moments where he has to, hold back a little bit on how much fun he's having doing it, because I think, if he knows that if he's really going to fulfill his legacy and maybe he ends up being a 5, 6, 7 time champion, that's going to have to be with KD. So I don't think he's enjoying this too much.
Why would KD come back at this point?
I mean, it's strictly just to collect rings. And the one thing I'd say about KD is, and this is one that I've always just been believing could absolutely be true, is that he is absolutely working the media and just trolling the hell out of us and making this Knicks thing seem like, because if the Knicks thing was certain, it would almost have to include Kyrie. And if Kyrie is considering even going to the Lakers or anywhere else, then it's not a sure thing that KD is going to the Knicks. I think, I think he has an argument either way. If they lose, it's like, cool, they proved, or I proved they need me, I'm going to go win with somebody else. And if they win, it's like, hey, I've done my winning here. Even if he wins another finals MVP or not, I've done my winning here. Let me go on somewhere else. But I think it comes with the assumption that he's going to do this somewhere else. And when you see how difficult it is to create this type of atmosphere, this type of culture, and consistently win a championship, like, he might just say, F it, I'll win 6 straight. And then they're going to have to talk about me with everybody else, or with Michael and LeBron. And so I think he could find a reason to stay. I don't think, it's almost like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And whether you have to deal with Draymond a little bit longer or, Steph getting all the love, you just deal with it. And then, gamble that on the backside, you're going to have all the finals MVPs and 6 championships and say, hey, I'm the best ever.
But when did he get so sensitive? Because, I mean, early in his career, the narrative was, LeBron does the decision, right, which I always felt he got unfairly banged on for. But LeBron does the decision, and KD puts out, is the darling of everybody because he puts out a 1-sentence statement on Twitter, right? And so where did this flip? Because, right? Because
I think what happens is, you pretty much have to have the right narrative going with you from the start of your career if that's going to be, if it's going to stick and if it's going to be long term. Like, for example, Kobe, from the very beginning, that dude wants to be exactly like Michael Jordan. And so, he goes throughout his career, everybody notices it, but along the way, everybody's comparing him. They call him a killer, blah, blah, blah. He gets those comparisons, therefore Kobe's up there. LeBron, King James, the chosen one, was supposed to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, from the time he was, 16. And so as he's pursuing that, this is what we compare him to the whole time. This is where we place him. KD, he was always this, phenomenal scorer, probably going to win some titles, and because early on he just created this, aw shucks, like, I'm just I'm just gonna do what I do, and I'm not gonna be on this, chasing LeBron thing or chasing Michael Jordan thing. I'm just going to create something for myself. And what he created was this image of, this very, what's the word I'm looking for, low maintenance superstar. And he would be doing it in a market like Oklahoma City, which didn't necessarily help him, right, in terms of putting him up there with LeBron and Kobe as far as attention, because LeBron obviously had the benefit of Cleveland being his hometown, and so then all of a sudden, he exposed himself and who he really is here in Golden State, and he's just. I think a little bit of it slipped, or she started to show rather, in Oklahoma City toward the end. But I think, this was always KD. He was just sort of figuring out everything as he went along the way. He didn't have a definitive, didn't have a definitive goal or who he wanted to be when it's all said and done. And now all of a sudden, he's like, oh, I want to be known as the greatest. And it's just like, all right, cool. Well, maybe we'll have to reset that. Ourselves in terms of how we view you, but you're going to have to sort of settle on what it is that you want, because this move to Golden State didn't help him if that's what he wants to do. And now if he's realizing it, 3 years later, then, he's just going to sort of reset that meter that just has us sort of, assessing who he is. And so I think anything is going to work for him because he's that good. So if he goes to the Knicks and they're great, then it's going to be, man, this guy won 3 championships and turned the Knicks into a relevant franchise again. He might be the greatest. And if he stays in Golden State and they win who knows how many in a row because of him, they'll say, hey, maybe he's up there with the greatest. So I think he's just so talented, it doesn't really matter what he does.
Couldn't he team up with Kawhi with the Clippers? Because that to me makes the most sense. You've got, you saw what the Clippers did under Doc without a star. Now, and even after trading Tobias.
It would make sense. Mm-hmm. It would make sense if Kawhi wasn't just having this postseason, because what are we saying about Kawhi right now? Is he the best player in the league?
Right.
As if he just leapfrogged KD just because KD is out and KD was having, best player in the league playoffs before he got hurt. And so you're going to have him go to a situation where Steph got and continues to get all the love, even though you get the finals MVP. And then you're going to go to a place where all of a sudden you still might not be considered the best player in your team. I doubt that's where he would go.
We'll get back to our episode here in a second, but first I want to tell you about a great new sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is ShipYourCarNow.com. These guys can move any car, boat, RV, motorcycle, or equipment anywhere you need worldwide. You have a business and need to ship freight or machinery? Call them. College moves, new car, used car, buying the toy you've looked at for a while? Call them. These guys can ship it all, so give them a call. Here's the number, 1-800-264-4644. That's 1-800-264-4644, or visit shipyourcarnow.com/5 reasons. Also, make sure to mention 5 reasons on the phone. I wish they'd had this when I was going to college. This would have been great for me. I needed to get my car down from Baltimore to Florida. I ended up taking the auto train. You don't want to take the auto train. Ship your car, fly. No job too big or too small. Ship Your Car Now moves it all.
Well, that's interesting. I just look at the Clippers situation. I say that group that you can put together in a room is as good as anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you've got Ballmer, you've got West, you've got Doc, Lawrence, whatever you think of Lawrence Frank. I mean, it's experienced people in that room, and they've done a great job with cap space. They got rid of Tobias at the right time. They signed Lou Williams for 3 at 24.
I think a tough part about projecting to be a teammate of Kawhi's is that you're pretty much going to have to speak for him. Like he's gonna be somebody, seriously, like he's gonna be somebody who's not gonna want to do interviews, and people are not gonna want to do interviews with him if he doesn't say anything. Then all of a sudden it's, hey, Kevin, what do you think about Kawhi's this? What do you think about, and Kevin doesn't love talking to the media. And so I think that prospect literally plays a part into how they think about, who they think about being teammates with.
All right, I'm going to get back to the Warriors because there's 2 more Warriors guys I want to get to. But let's go to Kawhi now since you mentioned it. What kind of interactions have you had with him?
About as good as you could possibly have, or that anybody could say they've had with him media-wise outside of Lee Jenkins, because he is exactly, again, it's almost like Steph, like he's exactly what we think he is. He is this sort of, I think you said this about Pat Riley one time, if I have this phrasing right, that he's professional autism. Is that right?
I've used
it's
some.
Just everything is about work, and he doesn't really understand what personal situations are. And I think it's funny. I think you watch him this year trying. He's really trying hard in these interviews. Like Not even just with me, but I was watching him with Kristen Ledlow the other day, and she asked him a question, and I forget what it was. It was about how his team feels after beating the Bucks 4 times in a row, and his immediate, honest, genuine answer was, I don't know. I haven't gotten to the locker room yet. But then he's like, all right, I probably should. You could almost hear him going through this in his head, and he's just like, all right, I probably shouldn't leave with that, jackass type of answer. Let me expand on that a little bit more. And so he's sort of stepping into this superstar role a little bit, and knowing that he has to, play a role and can't really just be himself all the time. But that person is just, who himself is just that intense competitor. If you think about how much better he's gotten, I don't think you've ever seen this type of improvement from, that guy's got some potential, to best player in the league.
Right.
Type of stuff. So you would have to be obsessive and just serious most of the time if that's who you're going to be. And if you make that comparison, and I can only make this comparison now because I feel like it's the type of, and the amount of work he's put in. He's kind of like, a serious version of Kobe Bryant. I think that's a perfect comparison for him. Like, he's just more robotic and everything else, literally both on the floor in the moves and, off the floor and in front of the camera. But he is that type of person, or that type of personality.
So how does the league, obviously, look, your career in a lot of ways, I know you do other things, but it's tied to the health of the league, right? All of us are to a certain degree, right? And so let's say he is the consensus best player in the league over the next 3 years. How the hell does the league sell that? LeBron was an easy sell. Kobe was an easy sell. Like I said, Kawhi may be a version of Kobe, but Kobe could also smile and develop that persona.
You can sell it. I think you can sell it as intrigue. I think you can sell it as, what is this guy made of? It's almost Tiger Woods like we didn't know a ton, did we, about Tiger Woods outside of I think we had the relationship with his father and everything else. But, he was a little bit robotic when it came to the media and what, who he actually let in, and et cetera. So, that's probably a bad example because we knew a lot about him. Even growing up, and everything was sort of recorded. But I think you can sell it that way. But I think there's enough out there in terms of competing, right? Like, it could be sort of the fight for who's the best player in the league. I think that's something, that the league could sell. But I just don't, you're right, there's just not that natural tug. I think Zion's going to be huge for the league in that respect. Like, he's got to come in and be that guy that says, that you say, wow, I have to watch that game.
But Israel, is Kawhi ever going to be top 5 in jersey sales, no matter where he is, ever?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, I think, honestly, if he becomes a Clipper, I think that'll be top 5.
Okay. Maybe Los Angeles does it.
I think if he stays in Toronto, if he wants.
Okay.
But I do think that, if he's going to be best player, face of the league, he's going to need some, like I said, some Zion type of assistance.
Right.
To carry it.
So, before we switch back to the Warriors, so what would you put the odds at? Win or lose in this finals that he stays where he is? Because everything, I know you're more tied in this than I am these days, but everything I've heard is it's L.A., and it's always been L.A., and it was just a question of which L.A. team, and one of them makes more sense than the other right now. Is that your view on it?
I think I'm with you in terms, I think it's strong. He's going to the Clippers if they lose. If they win a championship, I think it's honestly going to be like a 50-50 call, because the thing the Clippers have going for them is, it's similar to what I was saying before about, the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And the Clippers have a lot of good things going for them in, Doc Rivers and culture building, and very similar to Popovich, but, also very much a player's coach, etc. And the pieces there can work because that team made the playoffs without you in the Western Conference. So they have a lot of positives going for them. But if you win a championship and you beat that juggernaut of a dynasty, if you assume KD and DeMarcus come back at some point in the series, you can honestly say you beat that dynasty or brought an end to it. And so I think that's one of those situations where what can I get better than that? Like, maybe you're even underestimating who Marc Gasol and Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam are at this point in their careers, and they could still be an awesome, foursome for a few years to come. So I think that would give him some pause. But if they just become another victim of the Warriors, I think, wherever he wants to go is top priority.
We'll get back to today's episode in a second, but first I want to tell you about one of our new sponsors here in the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is the attorneys at Seltzer Mayberg. Find them at onecalllegal.com. That's O-N-E, calllegal.com, or actually call 855-5000-LAW-LAW. They handle cases including but not limited to car accidents, slip and falls, and any personal injury matters. Additionally, if you mention 5 Reasons, they will handle your traffic ticket for $44.99 with a new 15,000 square foot office opening on I-95 in North Miami. They will handle cases all over South Florida. Call now with 24/7 service for a free consultation. onecalllegal.com or 855-5000-LAW. The attorneys at Seltzer Mayberg, a proud sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, I'm going to want to get to some Heat stuff with you in a second because I know people still come to you for that. But let's go to the Warriors and the 2 other figures on there. I know you kind of had to develop a bit of a relationship with Klay from the very beginning, and obviously Draymond seems to have a relationship with everybody. But let's go to Klay here. Do you think there's a comfort level for him for just being where he is? Or does he need to do a James Harden and get his own team at some point?
I honestly think he's never struggled with that more than now. That eye roll the other day when he heard that Kemba Walker made the made the team, the All-NBA, and he didn't, was very telling. But I think it honestly will be overshadowed or outweighed by whatever feeling he has if they win it again. Mm-hmm. I think this is probably one of those that doesn't get spoken enough in terms of what Klay does, win or lose. Like, I think if they win, it's 100% he's coming back. That guy's going to be he's going to be Pippen to Curry's Jordan, period. And until, Curry leaves, he's not going to. But I think if they lose, he's going to have to consider it, because then it's just, all right, well, if we lose, I think KD's going to leave. And if KD leaves, can we do this anymore? And if that's the case, then why not go ahead and get my accolades and fill that, that void of that big question mark that I had. And so I honestly thought it would never get to that point with Klay. But I think, now where you watch him be more of a focal point, you realize, man, that dude can actually be a guy you run stuff for on the regular, and he can get greater numbers. And so I don't know if he can be a number one, but I think if he's going to be, anybody's sidekick, it better be for a championship type, for a championship response. And so I think it's super important for them to win for Klay's purposes as well.
So Draymond, is he a top 25 player in the league, in your opinion?
Yes. And I think we had taken a lot of what Draymond does for granted over the last, year and a half, I would say, arguably. And I think he has some injuries and some things that slowed him down along the way. But I think he is as good now as he's ever been. I think honestly, I honestly believe that his, fiance and mother and the impact that they've had on him in terms of showing him how silly he looked arguing with the refs and how it took away from who he is and his legacy. I think he's sort of coming to terms with that too. What does he want to be remembered for in this historic dynasty? Does he want to be remembered as, the guy who just aggravated everybody and they won in spite of the guy and cost them a championship because he got too hot-headed? Or does he want to be remembered as the guy who was absolutely vital to all of it? And even more so than a Horace Grant or a Dennis Rodman, who, played a very specific role on those teams, but didn't do it for all of them and, weren't as versatile. And I think him really grasping that and recognizing he doesn't have to fight with everybody turns him into an even better player, because he still, as you can see, hasn't lost his edge. He still wants to be that player. And so I think yes. I think he was on the verge of possibly becoming more of a punchline than a great. But I think, when he actually plays the way we've seen him since KD went out, I think he's definitely a top 25 player.
All right, let's do this one quickly because I want to get some Heat stuff with you. Your view on the finals. How does this go?
Everything in me wants to say that the Raptors are going to win, because the Warriors will have just too many moving parts with KD coming back eventually, and not knowing when to use them or how to use them, or maybe he won't be. This is a little bit more of a serious injury than they thought it was. Maybe he won't be right, and it could be something of a decoy, which could throw them off. I think DeMarcus Cousins' return might throw them off, and I think I think that sets up the Raptors to be good enough to beat them, because defensively, I think Kawhi and Danny Green and Kyle Lowry together is a pretty damn good perimeter defensive trio, and can hang with that team. And so, but there's something that tells me that the Warriors' run isn't just over. Like, they're going to have a couple of games, maybe even one of these two in Toronto, where it's just like, oh, well, there you go. You can't beat them when Steph and Clay hit 16 threes combined or something crazy like that, And then, and I think the Warriors end up winning in, I don't know how many games, but I think it's going to be like wildly competitive within.
Okay, that's interesting. I have the Warriors in 6. I just think, like I said, I think there's a little bit more left, unlike that 13-14 Heat team, because you still have 3 players playing at a high level. The problem with the Heat that year, other than going against a juggernaut in that Spurs team that was playing so well, was you really had one guy playing at a really high level and Bosh playing at a pretty high level, and Dwayne was not Dwayne. And so I just think,
the only hope that team had really of continuing their run is if, Dwayne came back and felt healthy, like he did this past year. And then Chris decided, hey, obviously stayed healthy as well, but then decided, hey, I'm going to be not just the third piece, but the best big in the league, and then everybody's growing a little bit together, and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, they're even better. But yeah, the way as it was meant to be.
Today's episode also brought to you by Doral Toyota. We're excited to tell you about one of our great partners. That is Doral Toyota, where you can find all your favorite Toyota models. Whether you're looking for a new, used, or certified pre-owned vehicle, Doral Toyota is located at 9775 Northwest 12th Street, just a few blocks from International and Dolphin Malls. Experience the Doral difference, which means 4 years complimentary maintenance and roadside assistance on all new vehicles. In-house financing is available for credit-related issues. Also, if you mention 5 Reasons when you call 305-680-1129 or come in the dealership, you'll work with a dedicated manager, not a salesman. Unlike other dealers, Doral Toyota prides itself on an honest and transparent buying process. That's Doral Toyota, DoralToyota.com, or stop in at 9775 Northwest 12th Street. Vamos, let's go, Doral Toyota.
All right, so before we get to current Heat, I'll throw this one question at you because I get this all the time. How competitive would that 12-13 Heat team, the team that won 66, 27 straight games, have been against peak Warriors?
I just played that game on 2K about 4 days ago.
How many minutes did Norris Cole get?
Too many. Way too many. Had to call like 3 timeouts in a row just to get him off the floor. I think, I think they'd be very competitive, and I think one of the factors would be Spo. I think he'd find a way to make the games not quite as explosive offensively, or make that team not quite as explosive offensively, and just really find a way to take advantage of LeBron specifically against that team, especially if they went small and, he could pretty much play the 5. I think having LeBron would still be the ultimate sort of code to cracking the Warriors. So I think they'd be right there with them, competitive. Like, if they were to have beaten them, it wouldn't be like a 2016 type upset. It would be, okay, they're just a little bit better.
All right, so let's go to current team, and I got two things for you. The first thing is, if you're the Heat's front office, whether it's Pat, Andy, Adam Simon, Chet Kammerer, Shane Battier, Alonzo Moore, whoever, all the people that are in those rooms right now, Nick Harrison, Mickey Harrison, how do you get out of this mess? You just wait it out? Or do you make a move? Or if Jimmy Butler says, because it seemed to me from Pat's press conference that basically what he's waiting on is some player, whether it's a Jimmy Butler or somebody else, to say, I want to be in Miami, and force his way there. Like, he basically said that that's the way out.
Yeah,
and
it's starting the domino effect.
Right, and it's always been the way out. That's the reality. But would you even do that? Like, let's say Jimmy says he wants to be in Miami. He doesn't want to be in Philadelphia. And he wanted to be in Miami the last time. Say he wants to be here.
What do we have? One more? I say we. We as a collective have had to deal with What do we have left on this Hassan Whiteside contract?
Well, one more, but I mean, I had to shoot this down this week. There's this Twitter rumor that he's opting out and Goran's opting out, and I went to somebody who's very close to one of them, his text to me back was, Ethan, there's no effing way that Hassan and Goran are opting out. So, there you go.
With that in mind, I think a team can deal with one, I want to say bad, but not in terms of like it's just a bad contract, but, any max deal that doesn't, land you an elite player is always going to be looked at as, hey, you're slightly overpaying, right? So I think teams can deal with one bad, quote unquote, bad contract if that player still provides something, right, of value. When that one player, that one bad contract goes to Son, it's not really giving you much. If that one player is even Jimmy Butler over the next 4 or 5 years, I think that you can work with. And I think you can, build a playoff team with that, and it becomes your starting point, as if to say, all right, they're back on track here. And, in terms of the culture, Jimmy is, seems like a great fit to have on this team. So I would say if you do something like that, I think that you can recover according to Pat's plan. But, I think the L that they've taken is what they've just done. Like, it's not going to get worse than the last few years.
No, it's not.
Fortunately, they had Dwayne to salvage it down the stretch, but I think they've learned from this enough, and they've taken the big L already.
Well, yeah, I called Dwayne the squirrel. He was the squirrel all year. It was like, don't look at the contracts, look at the Dwayne, and at some point they're going to need to transition. All right, I got 3 rapid fire for you here. 1, favorite interaction that you had with Dwayne Wade over the years. Just pick one.
Favorite.
Not when he was upset at you about writing about how the shoes fell apart, right? Because I remember that.
No, the shoe exploded. No, that was. So if you're going to ask me my least favorite, you've spoiled that one.
Okay.
But my favorite, I honestly, I have to go back to when he first got here and spent some time with him and his then wife and his now big ass son, Zaire, who was 2 at the time. And we were in one of the hotel that the Heat put players up in before they get their own place, and was in his living room playing Nerf basketball with Zaire. And, Dwayne was hanging out watching and playing as well. And it was funny because I just always remember that Zaire wasn't counting 3, 2, 1. He'd be counting the opposite direction while shooting. And he'd be like 1, 2, 3, as opposed to, the clock going down. So that's probably my favorite. My second favorite is probably on the Great Wall of China with him. There were some other players there, but Darren Williams, Chris Paul, etc. But him and I had some, interactions up there, which was pretty damn memorable.
Yeah, I think Dwayne, on a personal level, I think when you get to know him that way, you sort of always have that respect. All right, 2, you're a long-suffering Dolphins fan. Is Chosen Rosen, or as we call him, Drew Brees, is he the answer? Is he leading us? Is he leading you back to the promised land?
Drew Brees.
You can get that T-shirt on our site, by the way, 5reasonsports.com.
I really hope he is. Not just because I said he'd be Dan Marino before the draft or he was picked, but I think the Dolphins deserve it. I think it's a great type of story where it's like, all right, you didn't draft him, but you got him after 1 year, and if, he'll be yours if he's great, and it'll feel like, speaking of Dwayne Wade, that's kind of one of the other, outside of, being an actual championship contender, one of the best things about being a sports fan is watching a young super talent develop on your team, the team that you're cheering for. It was the best thing about seeing Dwayne Wade that first year. I was like, holy believe this guy's going to be MJ. And so if Rosen is that player, like, he is going to really rejuvenate that Dolphins fan base and pick up some young ones too. And I think that would be the best part about it. Whether or not, he's going to be, I have no idea. I think, mentality wise, you could argue that he has the right one, or you could argue that he doesn't, because you want somebody to be obsessive, more like a Kobe, Kawhi Leonard type, or Peyton Manning. But, in terms of skills, like, he seems to have them all. And I love his release. And that's the first thing that made me think of Marino, was the quick release when I saw him. So I really hope so. The nickname is amazing.
The nickname, yeah, both of them, but I prefer Drew Brees. And the third one, and this is the most important question: am I the best poker player you've ever seen?
Oh my God, no! You are terrible, and I love playing with you.
I know you said that was like $80 in your pocket every time. It's just like
I mean, it was basically my third job. playing you in poker. It was just collecting.
And Jax was talking the whole time. So it's like Jax is distracting us. We're trying to watch basketball. I spent $12 on pizza.
Whatever reason you want to, you can give me 5 reasons if you want. It doesn't matter. You're still an easy player to get money from.
5 reasons. Thank you for endorsing it. In fact, we're going to use that drop. Chris is I'm going to give that one to Chris. We're going to drop that. You could use 5 reasons if you wanted. Israel Gutierrez. Follow him at Iz Gutierrez. Obviously, check him out on Around the Horn. I saw you on there with Sedano the other day. I didn't know who to root for.
Yeah, it was the first. That was crazy.
Is that the first time?
Vibes going on there.
Yeah, that was
the first time we've been on together. Yeah. By the way, if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Mr. Iz Gutierrez.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I feel like I want to build up my Instagram so much. It's not like I'm going to be a model or anything, but I feel like it's very unequal.
I love how you throw in. It's
Twitter
not like
following.
you know what I love about that is that you're like, it's not like I'm going to be a model or anything, but that is exactly what you're trying to do. So it's just.
But I would. No, I'm not trying. I'm not actively trying to because I don't know how and I don't want to put a lot of effort into it. But I would.
Yeah, I know you would.
I absolutely would.
I know you would. All right, we appreciate it, and like I said, with you and Sedano's ego is big enough to fill the whole room on that one. So that's tone that down a little bit. Yeah, I know. All right, thanks, Iz. We'll do this again, hopefully.
All righty.
Thank you for listening to the Fire Reason Podcast. Thank you so much.